a servant by his divine grace, Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Dev Goswami. And this is being recorded, so behave yourselves, boys and girls. So, Srila Sri Ramakrishna is discussing how the Krishna conception, it's a different take on the absolute truth. It's a different point of view about the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the emporium of rasa. And we read this, but somehow it's hard for me to get past. Uh, he says, the Lord's potency is dynamic, and that dynamicism is always producing rasa, or the flavor of ecstasy. The whole Leela is producing ecstasy. Krishna himself is the emporium of rasa, Akila Rasamrita Murti. Dynamic movement is a necessity in his Leela. It cannot be eliminated. Wow. And that movement is always producing a novel ecstasy which feeds every atom of the spiritual world. In that transcendental abode, Krishna is the center, who attracts everything and induces rasa and ananda, ecstasy and joy within everything. This is the nature of the movement of the Absolute. It is not static, but dynamic, filled with movement. And that movement is Pratipadam Purnamritas Vadana. Of course, he's quoting here from the Shikshastakam of Sri Chaitanya. This is that sort of movement is understood through the vibration of the holy name or Sankirtan. At every point, every step, it produces a new type of joy which is infinite. It is not the stale and sterile joy we find here. This is the proper conception of the absolute. The organic whole, which is always working and moving, is full, and its fullness is ever new. So, as I was saying last week, this is very profound theology in the sense that you can put this up against Thomas Aquinas, Augustine, Karl Barth, Paul Tillich, um, Shankaracharya, even Madhvacharya, and identify Srila Sridhar Maharaj's uh, explanation of theology as the topmost. And it doesn't matter that it's in English. Uh, as, I don't know, nerds, as intellectuals, devotees are always trying to get back to the source. So you see, well, what Srila Sridhar Maharaj says here? How could I find that in some old Sanskrit book? Well, you could dig and look through hundreds of Sanskrit books, but you will not find as concise or pinpointed a careful explanation as what is given here. So instead of going into a library of books and trying to find what's the source of this, you might do well to contemplate what he's saying here. This is the proper conception of the absolute. So he's saying, this is from Rupa Goswami and his line. The proper conception of the absolute is he is the emporium of rasa and ecstasy. And you won't find that kind of understanding anywhere else. This is the proper conception of the absolute. Dante, for example, is lauded for his poetic creation of La Commedia Divina, and properly so, the greatest poet of Italy, arguably the greatest poet of all time. Um, and in his book, he synthesizes all the great teachings of the great theologians who wrote in Latin up to his time, including Aquinas and uh, Augustine and others. And he gives the complete conception of hell. He's such a good poet, Dante, that he demonstrates what hell must be like. And since that time, everybody believes in his particular version of hell and heaven. And so when he gets to heaven, what happens is his vision dissolves because he has no real idea of what the highest conception of divinity could be. He gets up to this feminine uh, aspect, Beatrice, who sort of represents mercy, the virgins, Mary. But that's about as high as he can go. So here, Sri Rama, she's telling you this is the highest conception. This is the proper conception of the absolute. The organic whole, which is always working and moving, is full, and its fullness is ever new. This is another interesting point, because the Buddhists will point to nothingness as fullness. They'll say the greatest fullness is nothingness, which is interesting because the value of a cup is not its fullness, but its emptiness. Because if it isn't empty, you can't put any tea in it. So emptiness is the big idea. But Srila Sri Ramakrishna says, no, fullness, and not just fullness, but a dynamic fullness, something that is always refilling itself. Its fullness is ever new. It is not standing or static. It moves in such a way that at every second, every minute, it is always producing new, unknown, infinite joy. And it gets to the point. We can purchase that joy. You can have that. You can subscribe to that joy only by paying the highest price, self-sacrifice. That ticket is very valuable, which can give us admission into the plane of automatic moving joy, which is ever new at every second. So what is the price? Sacrifice. And the ticket is wholesale sacrifice. So I've told this story before. I remember when I was in West Los Angeles in the 1970s searching for the truth. And suddenly someone appeared and suggested, if you're interested in yoga, and I think today is the International Day of Yoga, perhaps. I saw that somewhere. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I do make mistakes, as Adwai helped me out last week. But they told me, if you're interested in yoga, you have to try this guy, Muktananda, Swami Muktananda. He's really big. He knows everything. Check him out. And I was curious. So I said, well, how would I go about that? Well, he's in Malibu. Oh, I used to live in Malibu. Beautiful. And, well, you can do a weekend intensive retreat with Muktananda, and he will give you the Shakti pot. The Shakti pot? What is that? He will touch you on the head and impart divine wisdom and beauty and the white light. Oh, what do I have to do? Well, it's a $500 intensive retreat. And of course, $500 in 1975 is something like $5,000 or something today. And I thought, oh boy, this is rich man's yoga. I can't afford that. What are my other options? And this is West Los Angeles, which is sort of a Hollywood circus. So a little later on that afternoon, uh, there was a space in front of the Bank of America uh, where people would perform. So there was a brass band called the Oily Scarf Wino Band, and they would perform Flatfoot Flugie with the Floy Floy. And so here I am watching the Oily Scarf Wino Band playing Flatfoot Flugie with the Floy Floy. And they finished their set and collected their nickels and dimes and moved on. And a new group came on, which was a bunch of strange, weird aliens from another planet dressed in orange robes with shaved heads and some kind of yellow paste on their forehead, uh, pounding on drums and clanging cymbals and chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, stomping their feet and jumping up and down, creating pandemonium with beautiful ladies dressed in saris with their silken gown flowing in the wind as they danced barefoot in the street. And I thought, well, what is this? And I approached one of them and spoke to them, and they said, yes, this is also yoga. Oh, you mean like Muktananda? No, 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 no. This is different because Muktananda yoga, this is some sort of imitation. Some people, they do asanas, maybe a little meditation. But and I'm looking at these people with their brightly shaved, back shaved heads, glowing in the dark practically. And thinking, am I talking to a madman? Is this man completely out of his mind? Some people believed that, well, the Hare Krishnas, they took too much LSD back in the 60s and were transported to some other planet, but somehow uh, made it back alive and are spouting pure nonsense. But the man who was speaking to me was very clear. And he said, well, the Eightfold Yoga path is comprised of yama, niyama, pranayam, pratyahar, dharana, dhyan, asana, and samadhi. And mostly the Muktananda people, they may practice asana and a little bit of maybe dharana and dhyan, uh, and a bit of pranayam, but that's it. They don't really understand it completely, the Eightfold Yoga system. And I said, well, what do you mean? I was going to test this man to see if he really knew anything. He said, well, yama, that means the rules and regulations. For example, no meat eating, intoxication, uh, alcohol, no illicit sex, mental speculation, gambling, all these bad habits. That's also niyama, yama and niyama. It means rules and regulations, but also includes living a healthy life, uh, simple living and high thinking, ahimsa or nonviolence. Uh, and he went on describing the different uh, moral principles, ethical values included in the yoga system. He said, well, the Muktananda people are not so interested in that part of the Eightfold Yoga system. Dharana and Dhyan means controlling the mind and practicing meditation. They like to practice meditation a little bit because they can calm the mind enough so they can go back out and practice exploitation and work hard to make money. And they like asana because it keeps your body fit. And the ladies, particularly, they love the asanas because it's a relaxing way to practice some sort of exercise. And they can stay fit and healthy for sex. And I thought, wow, this man really knows what he's talking about. And they also practice pranayama, which of course is breath control. And you can go with them if you like. We have no prohibition on that. But our yoga is different. It's special. And I said, well, how does that work? He said, come to our Sunday feast and find out. Sunday feast? And I was a little poor at the time. I was a hardworking guy, but I thought, well, free food, that sounds good. And how much does your yoga thing cost? He says, it's free. Really? So Muktananda wants $500 for a weekend intensive, but your thing is free? Oh yeah, absolutely. Come on down. So I went to the Hare Krishna temple and tried the Sunday feast, and it was beautiful. They had pakoras and samosas, halva, and sweet balls. It was simply wonderful. It was gulab jamans and rasguls, sabji, all kinds of incredibly rich and delicious Indian food, the kind that Suvasini Meenakshi Sundaram excels at. She's such a good cook. And people imitate Indian cuisine, but they have no idea really how work intense it can be. Sometimes takes 3 days to prepare an entire dish. But anyways, so I enjoyed the Sunday feast and went to the lecture and heard it all. And a few weeks later, I decided I'm going to try this. And here I am 50 years later, and the conclusion was like this. I thought Muktananda was rich man's yoga because it would have cost me $500. But Muktananda wanted $500. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada wanted my soul. He wanted my soul. So $500 would have been cheap because Krishna consciousness or bhakti yoga, it involves self-sacrifice. And self-sacrifice means you give your soul. Now, this is not an easy proposition. It's not easy to work out. How do you give your soul to God? Because first of all, who is God? Where is God? And then if you think, well, I don't know God, but I can go to his representative, then, well, who is his representative? If I go to, Ram Maharaj or Krishna Maharaj or Houdini Maharaj, and I say, I want to be your disciple, I want to give you my soul. Well, that's an amazing thing to do. Srila Sridhar Maharaj said, no risk, no gain. If you don't give up something, you won't get anything. This is easy to understand, right? In exercise, no pain, no gain, no risk, no gain. And he said, then there's also some risk, a little bit of risk, and a little bit of gain. So you offer something and then you make an ask. You offer some flowers at the altar and you say, my car's not working, oh God. Can you please make my car work again? My computer is broken. Oh God, there's a short circuit. If I punch the computer on the back, maybe it will come alive. Can you please help me, God? So this is, some risk. I'm offering something, flowers, but I want to get something back. So there's some risk, some gain. That's easy to understand. Srila Sridhar Maharaj then he said, but what about this? All risk, no gain. What if you give yourself completely and you get nothing? The gopis of Vrindavan, they had no guarantee. They gave up everything, their reputation, their family, their home, their husbands, security, to try to see the dance. Here's Krishna dancing in the forest. But then Krishna might just disappear from the dance and leave you alone and forgotten. So all risk, no gain. Are you ready for that? So that's the kind of risk that we may run in surrender. Still, we're being told that surrender is our only ticket, sacrifice is our only ticket. So I have been somehow put in the position of trying to explain this book since Goswami Maharaj and myself and our team at Guardian of Devotion Press at 62 South 13th Street back in 1984, some 40 years ago, produced this text. So here I am trying to defend it. And yet, although I've contemplated these things for at least 40 years, I'm not really so sure about sacrifice and risk. So I thought I would put it to all of you. instead of just sitting here as the so-called expert. I'd like to hear from each one of you. And you don't have to take an hour. I took a long time telling my Muktananda story, but it's a good story. It's tried and tested. I told the people in Moscow that when I was there in 2014, So it's an interesting thought. There's Rich Man's Yoga, you can subscribe. And now it's not $500 intensive, it's $500 a week. But that's still cheap in comparison to giving your soul. So each one of you here, Pranashish Nasar, Haripriya, Swami, I was going to say Swami Muktananda, Suvasini Minakshi Sundaram. It's hard to read the little letters. You, Advai Krishna Prabhu, Tapanandini, all of you have given years as experienced devotees in trying to capture the idea of sacrifice in your life, dedication. What does it mean? Why don't each of one of you take 2 or 3 minutes? Because there's also people listening to this online later, secretly, surreptitiously, in the privacy of their own home. They're tuning into the YouTube recording, listening to it on headphones, maybe as they ride their bicycle through the streets of Paris or Calcutta. Enlighten me, please. Help me. What is sacrifice? What do we understand by that? We can just, I'm looking at the pattern over here. We could go around and do Pranashish first, if you don't mind. I understand if you don't want to say anything, that's fine, but I'd like to hear from you. So if you just give us 2 or 3 minutes, Pranashish, go ahead.
Okay, sacrifice means different things at different times. Normally, we associate sacrifice as a thing, something you give up to get something else. But sacrifice, if we look at it from the Vaishnav side, it means service. So sacrifice can mean service. So in that sense, everybody knows what service is. It's something you do to help somebody along the way. Like you said last week, whether it's going and getting the vegetables in the shop that's going to be cooked into the nice subji for Gaur Arti that evening, that's your role of that whole play to happen and become real. So yeah, nothing's for nothing. Nothing's for nothing in this world. So you got to give something to get something. It doesn't really matter what it is. It's energy. It's an intention. It's a prayer. It's an act. It can be many things. It's not so black and white, but.
Okay, for example, there's, you can do, well, there's Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. There's the 9 processes of
Yes.
devotional service. So you can achieve excellence or enlightenment or bhakti by hearing, by listening to the message, Shravanam Kirtanam, by distributing Krishna consciousness as best you can. Vaishnavas, Shravanam Kirtanam. Sevanam. There's Vaishnava Sev, right? Service to the Vaishnava, Guru Sev, service to the Guru, Granth Seva, creation of books and literatures like that. So then there's also service in the temple, puja. There's all these different gamuts and, kinds of seva. Let's try. Is your name Nazar?
Yes, Nazar. Dandavats. Mahayogi Prabhu, Dandavats devotees. Hard to say. I think there is idea of sacrifice, and one way is like to understand what is sacrifice in most efficient way, what is self-surrender. And the second is to understand where am I and how to slowly move to that idea of self-sacrifice, because I understand that I can't make self-sacrifice in my best understanding.
All right. Thank you, sir. Hari Krishna to you.
Hare Krishna.
Hari Priya, can you go next?
Yes, Mahayogi. My feeling on sacrifice is maybe sacrifice. I don't feel that's the correct word because we don't sacrifice. We're dedicated to service of the Lord, and that is our privilege. So there is no sacrifice in that. That is, we're granted the privilege, and in that way, there is no sacrifice. That's what I wanted to say.
Well spoken. Thank you very much. Yeah, that's a good point. See, we're always groping at words to try to define the idea of bhakti and seva. Srila Sridhar Maharaj is using the word sacrifice here. Elsewhere, he published this book called Prapana Jivanamritam, which has to do with prapana. And prapana means, or sharanagati is another way, the idea of surrender. But I was speaking on this to some Russian devotees. And you remember Vrajasundari Pranashish. She was translating into Russian. And the Russians were flustered. And she said, they don't like this word, surrender, because it's kind of a nasty word. Surrender means that the bad guys show up at your door with guns and you surrender. It has kind of a connotation of something that is unfairly forced upon you. You sign the surrender protocol at the Treaty of Versailles. And so when they heard that word, they thought, oh, no, we don't like surrender. Give us something different, you know. In Spanish, we say rendición, rendition, which comes out again distinctly in English. So we're always trying to, that's why I'm asking the esteemed group of Vaishnavas assembled here to help me profundizar, as we say in Spanish, help me go deeper into this idea of sacrifices that's represented by Srila Sridhar Maharaj. Shivasani.
Yes, my Dandavats to all the devotee Dandavats Mahayogi Prabhu. Actually, I am always reminded of Guru Maharaj's statement in this, when he's talking about surrender, to have this idea, it's like surrender, okay, you can surrender, sacrifices, surrender your possessions and all that, like that. But to have this idea of, that to know, to actually to realize that they don't belong to you anyway. Everything, it is not that you have something and then you're sacrificing that. So to have that, to understanding that it is not, it is not yours anyway, to have that we belong, everything belongs to the Lord and we also belong to Him. To have that understanding, I thought that it would be to have that understanding or realization that we belong to Him and everything belongs to Him. Then it is like, of course, it is the highest level to understand, to realize. I mean, we don't start from that level. Krishna, in the Bhagavad Gita also, like, step by step, is, helping us to uplift ourselves to that higher consciousness. But that will be the highest thing, to realize that we belong to Him. I think that is.
Another thing occurred to me when I was going through this text before having to speak this morning, in terms of getting back to the word sacrifice, it seemed to me that somehow, in a particular sense, women understand innately as mothers what sacrifice is, because mothers are capable of sacrificing everything for their children. So, whereas men, we're different. We're constructed a little differently. We have the XY chromosome. We have an incomplete chromosome there. So men, they're very good at dedicating themselves to a mission or to an idea, like the country or the military or the church or the cause or the work that I'm doing. A man can give everything to his project or to his work. Whereas I think women understand very deeply the idea of sacrifice as it relates to raising children. And that may be a bit of a mundane example, of course, because the word mother in Latin, mater, creates matter and materialism. So it may be a bit of a mundane example, but Srila Prabhupada uses the metaphor of a child crying for its mother when chanting the holy name, that we're sort of helplessly crying out to God. But what do you think of that, Suvasini? Is there anything there? Do you believe that mothers understand sacrifice from the point of view of giving everything for their children?
Yes, yeah, it is a very, in this world, that's the, that we do sacrifice. It is to the object of our love. When we have the love for somebody, right? That is, then, we are prepared to sacrifice. This is so to develop the love, then
So
sacrifice becomes natural, right? When we have that love, then the sacrifice, it is not like a force. Oh, I have to do this. Then it is not like a condition. It's like, it is more natural because, you want to give from your heart.
something is born from your heart, something is born within you, and then you feel, well, of course I have to do this because,
Because we love the children, we love our children, and then we are prepared to do that for, we don't mind, although it is, maybe difficult, but we are prepared to do that because there is a love there.
But I wonder how we are to apply this to God. See, a child is a very practical thing. It's crying in the other room, hey, help me out. But how are we to apply this idea of giving and self-sacrifice to God? And, I think the person who can enlighten us on this is Advai Krishna Prabhu, because he just finished translating and publishing a book about sacrifice and self-surrender called Sharanagati.
Well,
So,
yeah, no, you actually, in a way, anticipated what I was going to say. As a parent, I mean, I know I'm a male, but I'm still a parent. And the idea of, as Suvasini was explaining, not sacrifice, but it's normal towards your kids. Like if the Yamadutas show up and they ask me, it's either you or your daughter or your son, you don't even think a second about it. Just take me. So that's I think it's natural for parents. But how to bring that level of, die to live, in the sense that, yeah, take me, I'm ready for Sri Guru and Sri Krishna. That's for me what surrender, what Saranagati means, but I don't have a clue on how to do that. But to me, that's a parallel. It's like die to live. Yeah, I'm ready to die for my kids now, no problem. I wouldn't do that for a president or for my country. I couldn't be bothered, but I would die now for my kids. So
Okay.
how can you have that for Sri Guru? That's my
Of course,
take.
we don't want you to die for your kids. We want you to live for your kids. All right, Tapanandini, help us out. Are you there?
Yes, I'm right here. Dandavas Mahayogi. Aló, cambio.
Cambio.
I think love is the higher sacrifice. It overcomes everything. Eric Fromm say love is an act of will. You decide. You choose to love. Once Govinda Maharaj said that the higher service is love. Also, it is said by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita that love is the higher sacrifice, the higher service to him. So whenever you are in any situation, what you need to get into that love, acceptance. That is a way of surrender that I think it is a different light. As you were, the devotees were asking for a new word. The word that I think is acceptance. Everything is coming to help you. You don't see it. You may think it will make you suffer, it will make you struggle, but you have to trust. And remember that what Sridhar Maharaj said, I have my guardian. I have always and forever will have my guardian.
All right. Well said. Well, I don't want to rob too much more of your time. I'll just read a little bit more from the book and leave you to your devotional lives. But so Srila Sridhar Maharaj continues talking about sacrifice. He says that sacrifice is joyful. The quality of joy has variety, and it comes to help us in our serving attitude, so that at every moment we may feel new encouragement. So we have to inquire from the proper agent, follow his advice, and try to understand how to improve our condition. At the same time, we should be conscious that the chance we have to render devotional service is rarely found. It is not very cheap. Therefore, we must utilize every minute, every second, every moment. We should be very much alert that a moment not be lost, that our attempt to dedicate ourselves may continue constantly without being interrupted. That stage of dedication is called nishta. And when we attain that stage, our taste is further improved, and we will be more and more encouraged to go forward towards ultimate fulfillment. Shukadev Goswami told Pariksit Maharaj that 7 days of longevity is enough to achieve perfection. He said, "You only have 7 days left to live. Do you think it is a short time? It is enough time. What is all important is the proper use of every second. What time we have in our hands is uncertain, but we must try our best to properly use every second. This must not be neglected. We should not think, the future is before me. Any time I like, I can engage in the profitable affair of spiritual life. Not 1 second should be lost." Longfellow wrote, "Trust no future, however pleasant. Let the dead past bury the dead, and act in the living present, heart within and God overhead." I think I'll stop there. I think that's a nice place to stop our reading for today. We took about an hour of your time. I don't want to take more. Everyone has important devotional service to do. So I just want to thank you all very much for being here, for giving me the pleasure of your association and company, and in this way blessing my life with the bhakti that flows from the saints. And if there are any saints, scholars, devotees, spiritual aspirants, truth seekers out there listening to this message as it was recorded, please send your blessings to the devoted souls who are gathered here together, and say a little prayer for me. Pray for my soul and the soul of Pranashish and Nazar, and Haripriya, Suvasini, Adwai, and Tapanandini. And with that, I'd like to close the meeting and say adios.
Mahayogi
Hare Krishna.
ki jai. All the
Gaura
sub-
Bhakti
See you later, Mahayogi. Haribol, Haribol.
See you later. Peace and love.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Haribol.